UIW head coach Clint Killough. Coach, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been a busy day. Before we talk about this season, I do want to go back to last season. Southland champions, just how proud are you of the way that they competed last year?
Oh, yeah, extremely proud. Those guys, from players to coaches, are extremely diligent. They work their tails off. They're extreme competitors, so they got a chip on their shoulder. They relate to their head coach, that's for sure. But we've done a great job of leaving 2024 and 2024. We got out there on a big stage at South Dakota State, and it didn't go the way it should have went, and it was obviously our own doing, so we've done a great job of looking in the mirror and getting back to work in 2025.
Coach, it feels like you set a new standard for this conference. And I say that because a couple years ago, you were on the outside looking in, the bubble team that should have gotten the bid. Last year, you got the automatic bid, but you did that because you changed your schedule around. You chose to go to South Dakota State last year, doing that. Now I look at these schedules and I'm like, man, there's some big teams all across the conference. How much did that help you guys, and how big is it for the national profile of this conference for you guys to play those teams? Yeah,
we try not to focus too much on the national profile and what people think of us, to be totally honest with you. We're trying to challenge ourselves in the non-conference, and that was the biggest thing of going up to Brookings, going to Carbondale and playing Southern Illinois, and going to two places that were storied programs that had really quality opponents that we felt could kind of forge us in the fire a little bit before we got into conference play.
Coach, you've kind of led this rebirth of the conference a little bit with three championships since COVID, really. What's the difference in the conference now, and can you remember back to when you were playing two games against the teams just to keep the thing alive?
Yeah, I think Chris Grant has done a tremendous job in creating stability. I think there's a ton of pride in the communities and in the programs that are in this league. I think, obviously the Louisiana schools, we've done a great job of bringing SFA back into the fold, a startup in UTRGV. So I think there's a ton of stability in the programs, and I think the pride is continuing to create momentum, and football is seasonal, there's ups and downs in programs, and obviously there's a ton of attrition and people in leadership roles, and things change, and it's kind of the ebbs and flows, and one of the hardest things in life and in football is sustaining success, and that's what we're trying to do every day.
Do you feel like maybe the national media hasn't really caught on to the fact that the conference is different than it was 2-3 years ago, and that's one of the reasons why you're having a hard time getting two teams in? And
I don't know, to be totally honest with you. I'm so focused on Incarnate Word. I got my head in the sand to a degree, to be totally honest with you. I am where my feet are. I'm focused on helping these guys win in football games. My opinion of this conference is that it's a tough league. We went in the second round and played a Villanova team, which is a good football team from a nationally viewed, I guess, physical, tough conference in the CAA. And we physically got after them, in my opinion. I had a feeling probably through the first half that we could physically get after them, and I didn't feel that way about every game I played in conference. You got some really physical teams from SFA to Lamar to Southeastern Louisiana. There is a physical brand of football that's played in the Southland Conference, and I think there's a little bit of a misconception, and it's probably from the era of Cam Ward, Lindsey Scott, Cole Kelly, and that we're just going to score a bunch of points and it's going to be flashy and we're going to throw it down the field. But, there is a physicality in this league that is definitely underrated.
Every time I talk about Incarnate Word, and I just saw Lindsey Scott just a second ago, It was great to see him, the offensive numbers flash.
Yeah.
But your defense is so good, and especially the ability to create lost yardage plays, the tackles for loss, the sacks. You were one of the leaders in the country in that last year. You being an offensive guy, obviously you like to put up points, but how important is that other side of the ball and the growth of that making you such a more complete team?
Yeah, it was huge. It was a huge emphasis when I got this job. Really was putting good people around me. That was a huge emphasis for me, and that was what my predecessors and my mentors and GJ and Eric had kind of said is, hey, put the best people around you that you possibly can, because as much as you want to do it all, you can't. And I got blessed. Again, I relied on the people that I've relied on, and I've built relationships with. Actually, Jordan Shoemaker, who was our offensive line coach from 18 to 22 and is now up in San Marcos, connected me with Coach Gush, and obviously I interviewed a ton of people. And me and Gush kind of hit it off. Obviously he's a 40-year coaching vet, so he's been doing this longer than I've been alive. But he's a competitor. He's kind of cut from the same cloth with what I do. I think schematically, he's seen everything that you can possibly see. He's had experience with an offense like us in terms of a tempo spread offense from his time with Art Briles at Baylor. And he can be multiple. There's a ton of line movement that he's able to create. He'll pressure you, and then he can also go man free and put bodies on bodies. And
it's interesting because Eric Morris, you mentioned him, and G.J. Kinney, obviously. Eric Morris at North Texas made some waves in his press conference, talking about the fact that, hey, UIW is a program that needs more funding. It needs more support. You're in a massive city. I mean, obviously you're here, you're home. How do you go about trying to create an identity and forge an identity and make waves in a large town? That's something that no one really in the conference has to deal with but you.
Yeah. I'm solution based. I'm gonna do the best I can with what I got. And I think that we've done a tremendous job of that, especially over the last 5 years since 2020 of building a brand. I mean, I don't think how much more of a brand can we have when the number one draft pick in the NFL was from Incarnate Word, and we won a conference championship and all those sorts of things. And obviously, we're focused on sustaining success and winning football games and being the best leader that I can. All that other stuff will take care of itself. That's above my pay grade. I'm worried about our building and the guys in it because they're dependent on me to be my best every day. So
every year, Clint, seems like the exact same question for your offense. Right? Who is going to be on it? Who's going to run the show? Who's going to be the receivers? All I know is your roster can turn over as much as it needs to. You find a way to find those players.
Yeah, I mean, attrition in the transfer portal, I get a ton of questions about it and kind of how you deal with it. And I think you just got to go with the flow. You can't swim against the current in terms of the portal because as much as you want to, it is what it is, and it's not going anywhere. Every program in the country, every coach in the country is dealing with attrition. So you got to go with the flow of things. And it's a privilege to play football at Incarnate Word and be on a team that's championship driven. And again, we're building something special. So we've done a great job. My staff has done a great job of recruiting with intention, which is obviously what our culture is built on. But I'm anxious to get this kicked off on Wednesday because we got a ton of competition going.
We had talked about the quarterbacks and how Incarnate Word has become a school for quality quarterbacks. You go back Cameron Ward, and you go back John Copeland. Yep. Before that, you've got Cameron Ward, number one pick in the draft. Lindsey Scott Jr., we know what he did. He was player of the year. Calzada, it just keeps going down the line. Is it something that you bring someone in that understands the gravity of playing quarterback now at Incarnate Word? Yeah.
I mean, it's become high profile to a degree. I think there are some expectations. Obviously, the lineage speaks for itself, and people want to be a part of that. They want to be a part of that lineage. So we got three guys that are studs that have a ton of talent. Obviously, Richie's been in the program for a couple years. He knows the system. He's a smooth operator. He's a gamer. He brings charisma to the position. We signed E.J. Colson and Dion Baptiste, two younger guys that are extremely talented. E.J.'s kind of got some of the moxie and can utilize his feet. Which is really exciting. Obviously, getting another hat in the box, and then Dion's got a huge arm. So we got competition all across the board. So I'll here in a couple weeks we'll find out who we are.
Well, Coach, you said your message, leave 2024 in 2024, but we are looking forward to see what you guys can do again this season. Good luck. Thank you so much for stopping by the set.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Brooke Kirchhoffer.